One of the most shocking mass murders in American history. Jim Jones led over 900 of his followers to their deaths. Congresswoman Jackie Speier is here, revealing how she survived Jonestown.
For decades, the events at Jonestown were labeled the most devastating and haunting experiences in American history. First, an ambush attack on U.S. delegates left 5 people dead, including a congressman with several others wounded. Then, a massacre consumed the lives of more than 900 men, women, and children. Other than 9/11, Jonestown was the single largest event of civilian death. And you know what? No one saw it coming. Crime correspondent Melissa Moore joins me now to give us some insights. So, Melissa, this was an incredible case of survival. Right. And specifically, Congresswoman Jackie Speier. What happened? How did she get there?
Well, she was just 28 years old. She was a new legal age. She landed a job with Congressman Leo Ryan. And at first, she had no idea what she was walking into, how big of a case this was. This was basically, there was family members that were concerned over their loved ones, that they were in the South America jungle and they can't reach them. And there's parental issues, without the people in the United States. And so she's going out with congressmen as a fact-finding mission, not knowing it's going to end in tragedy. Absolute tragedy.
And she's a hot shot, right? I mean, she's rising up.
Yeah, and today it's quite different for her. She's now a U.S. representative for California's 14th congressional district. She's been labeled, Newsweek's 150th fearless woman. So she's in a powerful position, but not only that, but she served down in South America with her mentor, Leo Ryan, who that was a fatal trip for him. And then now she's taking her mentor's seat and keeping the torch going.
Right. So today, Jackie Speier, she's here in person sharing her unbelievable story of survival.
It's been 4 decades since what's become known as the Jonestown Massacre. On November 18, 1978, the self-styled holy man Jim Jones instigated and oversaw the mass slaughter of more than 900 members of his cult, the People's Temple, many of them minorities and children. It was the terrifying end to Jones's twisted vision of creating a perverse utopian commune that promised equality in the jungles of South America. The horror of hundreds of people, entire families, drinking poison as Jones, a charismatic con man, manipulatively preached, instructing them to end their own lives. It remained the largest single loss of American civilian life in a deliberate act until 9/11. But the questions as to how it could have happened continue to haunt many, including California Congresswoman Jackie Speier. In 1978, as a young congressional aide, Speier traveled to Guyana with a committee to investigate allegations raised by concerned relatives of cult members who claimed human rights abuses were being committed by Jones and his followers. The mission would end in a bloody airport runway ambush as the committee tried to depart, leaving 5 people, including U.S. Congressman Leo Ryan, dead. Jackie was shot 5 times and waited 22 hours for a rescue. Shot the same day of the Jonestown Massacre, forever linking her to the horrific tragedy.
Congresswoman Jackie Speier joins me now. Thank you for being here. I remember this story in detail. I couldn't believe it was happening as it was happening. What was your game plan when you went down to Jonestown?
We were on a fact-finding mission. Congressman Ryan had constituents who had young adult loved ones who had gotten involved in the People's Temple in San Francisco and then went with Jim Jones to the commune in Jonestown. So we were really going on the trip to find out whether they really were there by their own volition, whether there was mind control going on. And we also brought lots of letters from their family members so that we could hand deliver them.
Were you worried for your own safety when you went down?
I was. I actually thought that we didn't know enough, and I actually said that to Congressman Ryan, who at the time said, "You have nothing to worry about." Much like having a congressional shield to protect him, there had never been a congressman assassinated in the line of duty abroad before him, and never anyone since then. So he had reason to be optimistic, but I had a premonition. I was about to purchase a condominium in Virginia, and I made a clause in the contract that made it contingent on my surviving the trip to Jonestown.
Oh my goodness. Where your intuition was also strong enough that you from what I can tell, wrote your parents a goodbye note. If you don't mind, this is something that you left for your parents in a drawer.
I left it in my desk drawer in the Capitol. Mom and Dad, I love you. Should anything happen, be proud because my life has been full of the love you have given me. I have no regrets. Love, Jackie. And then the bottom has a P.S. $1,000 life insurance policy with the credit union.
I know. You really splurged. That's a pretty profound letter for a 28-year-old with her whole life in front of her to send to her parents. Why were you so fearful?
Because I had spent so much time listening to the audio tape interviews of defectors who talked about the physical abuse, the child abuse, the sexual abuse, the gun running. And you would think that someone would have stopped this. But the local electeds in San Francisco did not, because they were indebted to Jones because he helped them get elected. The State Department did not protect and warn and investigate as they should American citizens abroad, because there was a political interest in making sure bauxite was continuing to be exported from Guyana to the United States.
Oh, I didn't realize that there was a monetary reason. They were exporting bauxite,
which is used to make aluminum and was of great value.
So in the middle of all this intrigue, now I didn't recognize this deeper element, you travel to a foreign country, Guyana. Jim Jones meets you there. What were your first impressions when you saw a man who's somehow able to captivate these people, to leave everything for him?
So he had been defined as a charismatic leader, but by the time we got there, he was not that charismatic leader. Now, whether he was sick or on drugs, probably a little bit of both. Now, we took a tour of the facility. You had to be impressed. They had crops growing, they had cabins and a daycare and a medical clinic, and so they put on a good show. But then we sat down with the various people that we wanted to meet, constituents' children, typically, and you could tell that there was something very wrong.
And I know that at some point you began to realize it wasn't just intuition, that you had actual evidence that there was wrongdoing in Jonestown.
So one of the reporters, Don Harris, who was killed on that airstrip later, had been walking around the perimeter, and someone slipped him a note with 2 names on it. So he brings the note over to us at the end of the evening, and my heart sunk, because then I knew that it was true, that people were being held there against their will. So the next day,
What did the note say?
The note said, "We want to get out of here."
Oh, there were cries for help, but secret ones.
Yes. So the next day, I escorted the woman, he escorted the man to their cabins to get their belongings, and then word spread like wildfire. And then whole families wanted to leave. And it became a very tense situation, very explosive in nature. And then we were on our way to the airstrip, and there were still people that wanted to leave, but we didn't have enough planes, so Congressman Ryan was staying behind. And then there was a knifing attempt on him. They brought him down to the truck. We go to the airstrip. And then as I'm loading passengers onto both planes, unbeknownst to us, a tractor trailer had followed behind us with 7 gunmen on it, and they started shooting.
Oh, no.
And Congressman Ryan was shot. I had my back to the tractor trailer, so I didn't actually know what was happening. He got shot. I saw blood coming out of his neck. I turned around. He was shot again. I raced under the plane and tried to hide behind a wheel and pretended to be dead. And then eventually they came and shot me 5 times.
So I want to get to these shootings because it's a miracle you're sitting next to me. And if as a physician, I can really say you're a miracle. But ultimately, the tragic deaths at Jonestown happened in different ways. Several people were shot, as you just heard. Hundreds committed suicide by drinking a flavored fruit drink mixed with potassium cyanide and sedatives. But sometimes this was done at gunpoint. Some gave it to their unsuspecting children before drinking it themselves. When a child is given poison, I don't think that's suicide, that's murder. In large amounts, this concoction that they were given can kill within minutes by slowing your heart rate and depriving your brain of oxygen. It's a cyanide compound. So up next, what happened took everyone by surprise and left Congresswoman Speier with several gunshot wounds, ones that should have killed her. And she was trapped on the tarmac for nearly 24 hours with those wounds. How did she survive? Stay with us. We're back with Congresswoman Jackie Speier. She just described being shot several times during the Jonestown Massacre. If you don't mind, just show everybody how you were positioned and where you were shot.
So I was lying on my side with my head down, pretending to be dead. And they came and shot me in the arm, the forearm, the leg, and the back.
One gun, two guns, you couldn't tell?
Two guns. One was a shotgun and one was an automatic rifle.
The pain must have been excruciating. I mean, imagine 4 times, 5 times getting shot?
So the immediate reaction was one of shock, I think, and I felt like a semi had just driven over my body. There was a bone jetting out of my arm. There was a wound the size of a football in my leg. I mean, there's no reason why I survived because all the tissue around the femoral artery was torn up, and yet it wasn't severed.
Let me just, if I can, show you what Jackie means by mentioning this artery. Because when you have a football size of tissue missing from your leg, you usually will die. Because there's an artery, and this is an image of the body, if you look up on the screen, everybody. And in there, you see this big tube coming down from the heart at the top of the screen. That red tube is the aorta, coursing blood down. And if you go down into the legs, you see that little pink structure, right? That pink structure is the femoral artery. And if you chomp out a bunch of tissue, you're going to hit that femoral artery. And all this blood from the aorta, the big tube, the red tube, goes down, courses through the femoral artery. I mean, liters a minute. So within minutes, you would have been dead if they'd actually injured this artery, the femoral artery, which is why having you next to me is inconceivable.
I am very lucky to be alive. Yeah. I know that.
And yet, for 22 hours, you were lying on that tarmac, pretending to be dead because you pretty much almost were.
Right.
So what was going through your mind?
I just promised myself that if I did live, if I did survive, I would never take another day for granted, and that I would dedicate my life to public service. And so that's what I've done.
Maybe the world will survive. What happened after 22 hours when the cavalry came in?
So after 22 hours, we were airlifted out of there. We were taken to Georgetown, the capital of Guyana.
While you were lying there, you were hearing a gunshot still, right? When people committing suicide?
No, because that was some distance away in the jungle. We got word during the night that they had done the White Knight trial that they had always talked about. But there were no cell phones back there. This was just word kind of coming through the jungle.
And the White Knight trial was a mass suicide?
Yeah, or murder, as I refer to it. So I got through that night because one of the producers from NBC had kept bringing me Guyanese rum, and I took slugs of Guyanese rum through the night.
It's a good reason to get drunk.
Yeah, it was.
They're not a lot, but that is. So the Guyanese army comes.
So they come, they secure the airstrip. Eventually a cargo plane airlifts us out of there. We get to Georgetown, Guyana, and there is this white gleaming plane with the words United States of America on it.
Oh, gosh.
And it was like someone had wrapped me in the American flag. And I got taken into that plane where they started triage and
you realize the beauty of our country.
You know, there's never a time that I say the Pledge of Allegiance or sing the national anthem that I don't take myself back to that moment. Okay. We're very lucky to be alive.
Your recovery must have been long and painful.
So my recovery was over 2 months, and I had my radial nerve was shot in my arm, so they had a contraption on my arm because I couldn't raise my hand. And they didn't know if the radial nerve would regenerate. Eventually it did. But then I had physical therapy for many years.
And why didn't you lose your leg with that size of an injury?
So had gas gangrene through it. So I was taken to the Baltimore Shock Trauma Center where I had hyperbaric chamber treatments for.
Which was really cutting edge back then.
It was cutting edge, but it was also a painful process, I might add. But it was what helped save me.
And you still have bullets in your body.
I still carry 2 bullets.
So I got to say, going through all that and then at the same time realizing the magnitude of the tragedy in Jonestown must have been very challenging.
Well, it was. I had lost the mentor, the man I worked for, who I believed was doing the right thing, trying to save his constituents. There were 900 people's lives who were lost, many of whom I had interacted with over the course of 2 days. There were some people's lives who we were able to save. But it was horrific on so many levels because Our local governments didn't respond properly because there was all this abuse going on. Our State Department didn't operate as it should in terms of protecting American citizens abroad. So it was a very sad tale all the way around.
What makes me admire you so much, you're sort of like Job. You get through that, and I'll just say this, she has a wonderful book where she talks about these things very openly. 2 miscarriages. You lost a wonderful husband while you were pregnant with your 2nd child. I mean, you can't put these stories together. How do you even begin to stay strong through that? How do you find meaning in spite of all this loss?
So the book is really about resilience, and we don't know how resilient we really are. But if we surround ourselves with what I call the 3 F's, family, friends, and faith, we can really overcome virtually anything. I mean, there were days that I did not want to get up. And when I didn't want to get up on those days, I'd give myself permission to stay in bed. But then I also demanded that I get up the next day. And so it's a combination of being kind to yourself, but also being somewhat resolute and demanding of yourself, too.
Well, we use only F's from now on. Family, faith.
And friends.
I add food and fun.
That's good, too.
Thank you for dedicating your life to serving our nation.
Thank
you. You can find Congresswoman Jackie Speier's book. It's called Undaunted, Surviving Jonestown, Summoning Courage, and Fighting Back. It is available now. You'll enjoy it. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss out on new videos to live the good life.